The Texas Department of Transportation maintains roughly 80,000 miles of highway, and somewhere near the bottom of its traffic counts, threading 50 miles of canyon between the villages of Lajitas and Presidio, is Farm to Market Road 170, the River Road, El Camino del Rio, a two-lane ribbon squeezed between the Rio Grande and the mountains of the Big Bend. In daylight, it is routinely called the most beautiful drive in Texas. National Geographic once suggested it might be the prettiest drive in America, but this road has two entirely different identities, divided by a single event that happens every evening around 8 o'clock, when the sun drops behind the Bofecillos Mountains and the canyons fill up with dark. Because the Big Bend is not ordinarily dark. It is one of the darkest inhabited places on the continent, a region so free of artificial light that its parks hold some of the highest international dark sky certifications on Earth. And on a moonless night, the river road becomes a corridor of absolute blackness, where your headlights are the only human light for 20 miles in any direction, where the pavement dives blind into flooded arroyos and climbs a 15% grade with a canyon on one side, where 700-pound animals stand invisible on the center line, and where, if anything goes wrong, no one is coming, because no one knows you are there. The people who freighted this route before it was paved gave it a name that functions as a review. Muerte del Burro, Death of the Burro, a road that killed the animals that worked it. The state renamed it, paved it, and hung a scenic byway sign on it. The road kept its old opinions, and it expresses them most fluently at night. That is what we are talking about today. To understand why darkness transforms this particular road, you have to understand how grudgingly it was built. There was a mule track along the river for generations, serving the farms of the ancient district the Spanish called La Junta de los Rios, where people have cultivated the floodplain near Presidio for centuries, the oldest continuously farmed ground in Texas. The state began converting the track to highway in stages after the Second World War, a few miles out of Presidio, an extension to the village of Redford in 1949, then a long, slow fight through the 1950s to blast a roadbed along the canyon walls of Colorado Canyon, and the final link did not open until 1961, 16 years of work for 50 miles of pavement, in an era when Texas was flinging freeways across whole regions in a fraction of that time. And the road the engineers got was not a conquest but a treaty, on the terrain's terms. There was no money and no room for bridges, so at every one of the dozens of arroyos that drain the mountains into the river, the pavement simply dips down through the drainage and climbs out the other side, which works beautifully until it rains anywhere in the watershed, at which point any of those dips can be running 2 feet of brown water studded with rolling rock, and there was no way around one shoulder of mountain near the river's edge, so the road goes over it, at the big hill, La Cuesta, a grade that reaches 15%, among the steepest on any paved highway in Texas, cresting between rock wall and gorge. In daylight, you see the dips coming. You see the water. You see the crest. This detail will matter in a moment, because night deletes every one of those advantages, and the road's entire safety system, it turns out, was the sun. Now consider what actually occupies this road after dark, because the emptiness is not empty. Far West Texas operates under the old open-range tradition. Along stretches of the river corridor, livestock is not fenced away from the highway, and cattle and horses wander onto the warm asphalt at night because the pavement holds the day's heat, and they stand there, dark-hided and motionless, entirely invisible beyond headlight range on an unlit road, and a black cow on black pavement under a black sky is functionally a wall that appears at the last second. Around and above them moves the wild traffic, mule deer drifting down to the river to drink in the cool hours, javelinas crossing in family groups, jackrabbits detonating out of the brush, and, on the cliffs around the big hill, herds of aoudad, the big North African sheep gone feral in these mountains, which have a documented habit of descending to the road at dusk and scattering across it when lights approach. Hit a deer at 60, and you lose a radiator. Hit an aoudad ram or a range cow at 60, and the physics belongs to the animal. And the arroyos wait underneath it all, because desert rain is a nighttime performer in the summer monsoon. A storm cell you never see, pounding a mountainside 10 miles away, sends its water down to cross the road in front of you an hour later, and a flooded dip that would stop any sensible driver at noon is, at night, just a slightly darker patch of dark until your front wheels are in it. The state's warning for this situation is printed on yellow signs across all of West Texas and reads like the region's own epitaph: "Turn around, don't drown." At night on the river road, the sign assumes a visibility the night has already repossessed. Then there is the question of what happens after something goes wrong, and this is where the road's remoteness stops being romantic and becomes arithmetic. There is no cell service through most of the canyons. The rock walls see to that. There are no towns, no houses, no gas stations, and almost no traffic between Lajitas and Presidio after dark. So the strategy of waiting for headlights, reliable on most American roads, here means waiting until morning. The nearest full hospital is in Alpine, on the far side of Presidio and a mountain range, the better part of 2 hours from the middle of the road under ideal conditions. And conditions are not ideal, because before the ambulance can drive to you, someone has to know you exist, which requires either your overdue arrival to alarm somebody, or a border patrol unit or state trooper to happen down the corridor on a night patrol. Trauma medicine talks about the golden hour, the window in which the badly injured can usually be saved. A driver who leaves the pavement at the big hill at 10 in the evening, alone, unreported, is not working within the golden hour. They are working within the golden night, and the desert holds the other end of that negotiation. The border itself adds the layer everyone asks about, and honesty requires proportion. This is, statistically, among the safest stretches of the entire US-Mexico line, and the villages along it, Redford, the crossings at Lajitas, have watched quiet river traffic move back and forth for 300 years. But night on a remote border corridor means you may round a bend into a border patrol checkpoint's sudden lights, or meet an unlit vehicle moving without enthusiasm for company, and it means the region carries its own hard memory of what darkness and suspicion can do out here. In 1997, near Redford, an 18-year-old American named Ezequiel Hernandez Jr., herding his family's goats by the river at dusk, was shot and killed by a Marine surveillance team that mistook him for a threat. The first such death on home soil in decades, a wound that village has never fully closed. The lesson locals draw from it is not that the road is sinister. It is that after dark, out here, everyone is guessing about everyone, and guessing is how tragedies start. So the warning in this video's title is not folklore, and it is not clickbait. It is the collected advice of the people who live at either end. Do not drive the river road at night if you can help it, and if you must, do it like a freighter from the Muerte del Burro years, slow, deliberate, and pessimistic. Cross the canyons in the morning instead, and here is what the morning buys you, because the case for this road is as strong as the case against its darkness. Leaving Lajitas early, you pass the movie-set ghost town of Contrabando, a fake ruin the 2008 floods promoted to a real one, and enter Big Bend Ranch State Park, where the road begins its long conversation with the river, Colorado Canyon's dark volcanic walls stacked above green water, the slot of closed canyon opening like a hallway in the rock, hoodoos balanced on pedestals, and then the big hill, which in daylight is not a hazard but a revelation, the pavement cresting between cliffs with 75 miles of mountains visible into Mexico, the single most photographed piece of asphalt in Texas. At the bottom, the concrete teepees of the 1960s picnic area stand in their improbable optimism. Farther on, the river widens into the old farmlands, Redford's little church, and finally Fort Leaton, the massive adobe stronghold where a former scalp hunter named Ben Leaton set up shop in 1848 to sell supplies to the Chihuahua Trail, now a state historic site whose thick walls have outlasted every enterprise that ever tried this country. 50 miles, 2 hours if you never stop, which you will not manage, because nobody does. And if you time it right, there is a way to have the night without surrendering to it, which is the secret the locals actually keep. Drive the road late in the day, position yourself at the big hill or the teepees for sunset, and then stop driving. Get out. Turn off your engine and your lights and give your eyes 20 minutes, and the sky above the river road will do the thing it does better than almost any sky over pavement in North America. The Milky Way rising out of Mexico in a band bright enough to cast shadow, thousands of stars down to the horizon in every direction, the whole reason the parks here hold their dark sky designations, the darkness that is lethal at 60 miles an hour, revealed as the treasure it actually is at 0. The Big Ben's night was never the enemy. The enemy was the assumption that a road which negotiates with mountains, floods, livestock, and 3 centuries of border history would also negotiate with your headlights and your schedule. It will not. It never has. The boroughs learned the road's terms first and paid the tuition. The name they left behind was the original warning sign, posted a century before the state got around to yellow paint. So drive El Camino del Rio, absolutely, in the long gold light of a desert afternoon, with a full tank and more water than you think you need, and be parked somewhere safe when the Bofasilos take the sun. Then stand in the sudden enormous dark beside your silent car, on the shoulder of the loneliest beautiful road in Texas, and listen. The river working at the canyon, something moving down to drink, wind in the creosote, and no engine but your cooling one anywhere in 50 miles. The road is still out there in the blackness, dipping through its arroyos, climbing its impossible hill, holding the day's heat under the hooves of animals you cannot see, keeping the schedule it has kept since before it had a number, and it will be there in the morning, glorious and reasonable again, ready to show you everything, provided you extended it the one courtesy it has always demanded, which is to know whose road it is after dark.